Controversy, you say? In gaming, you say? Where? Conventions. A place to try out new material, to do experimental one-shots, to get playtesters for your game project, to buy new games, to meet new people, all of those kinds of things. Or perhaps not these days. Perhaps it's best to start with the official blah about what has occurred.
It was brought to our attention that in an RPG game on Friday afternoon, a GM volunteer included content that was completely unacceptable and breached both the letter and spirit of the UK Games Expo. The scenario included descriptions of sexual violence involving the players. The players were understandably distressed and shocked by this content. This content was not set out in the game description. If it had been included in the submission, it would have been rejected as unacceptable, even for a game with an 18 rating. All games must still comply with the policies and the spirit of UK Games Expo. We've spoken personally to the player who first raised the issue and have unreservedly apologised for the distress caused. We are currently contacting the other players so we can offer them our apologies and any assistance they might need. We have made it clear that this kind of behaviour and content has no place at UK Games Expo and will not be accepted. We immediately halted the game the GM was currently running and cancelled all of the games he was due to run. The GM has been ejected from the show and will not be allowed access to any of the NEC halls or Hilton function rooms that are under the control of UK Games Expo. He has also been banned from submitting any games for the foreseeable future. We will be reviewing our game submission systems in order to improve our ability to vet content of an RPG before it is accepted. We remain committed to providing a safe and happy place for all players to come together and enjoy the hobby we all love.
It's probably best to start from where I think that this Games Master got things wrong. Now, I'm not a fan of content warnings, but in this instance, probably to err on the side of caution, it probably would have been a good idea, though judging from UK Games Expo's response, that wouldn't have helped at all. He was running a horror game, Things from the Flood, which is a kind of sequel add-on to Tales from the Loop. Tales from the Loop is a kind of surreal, odd, slightly horrific game based on a Swedish artist's kind of surreal 80s throwback intermixed with science fiction stuff. Yeah, that's more of a safe kids on bikes sort of genre, whereas Things from the Flood is a lot more adult, a lot more dangerous. You're playing teenagers, it's the 90s, you can actually die in that game. Yeah, there's danger there, and it is a horror game. Now, to my mind, running a horror game is sufficient content warning for people coming to play that game, but still, probably should have had some kind of additional content warning, though that wouldn't have helped. I don't think it is... I don't like using the word safe because people overuse it and use it in ridiculous contexts like this, but I don't think it is safe for someone to run edgy or darkly artistic content at conventions anymore. For those who don't know, UK Games Expo has kind of replaced Games Fair, Gen Con UK that used to be run here. It is like the big convention in the UK, and it, like a lot of other conventions, has been adopting anti-harassment policies. There are not enough scare quotes in the world. I've long argued on this channel that these are a bad idea, that anything serious enough to rise to the level of harassment is better dealt with by the police, and anything that doesn't rise to that level is better dealt with by having the people sort it out amongst themselves. And I've long argued that all it will ever take is one asshole for this system to just fuck up everyone's day, and to an extent this seems to be what is happening here. So you probably should have included a content warning. You probably shouldn't run, well, a horror game, frankly, at a big convention, particularly one with one of these policies. But that seems to be the extent of it. They ran a game that's explicitly a horror game. It involved the player characters being subjected to horrible nastiness, which is kind of the bread and butter of any horror game. So the break point, the snapping point for people, the point where it becomes unacceptable, is sexual violence. Torture, fine. You could probably run a zombie apocalypse game without any trouble at one of these conventions. You could be as gory as you want, you could torture people, or you could drill out their kneecaps, but because it's sexual content, sexually violent content, that appears to be the problem. Now, of course, any sensible, remotely put together person would have just said, oh, okay, well, this game's not for me, sorry, but I'm gonna have to leave the table. Disruptive, kind of dickish on the part of the player, but, you know, acceptable, taking responsibility for the content that you're taking in. What actually happened is that they apparently sat through this game and then whined on Twitter about it. And fair enough, you didn't enjoy the game, but that really should be an end to it, shouldn't it, in any sensible world? But no, it blew up on Twitter, as Twitter is wont to do, and the reactions appear to have been as knee-jerky as one might expect. The GM being barred from the convention, I do hope they gave him his money back, banned from GMing, which is a voluntary thing, and why on earth are they screening scenarios? At a convention, if you're willing to run a game, that should be an end to it, really. What happened to all the open access games, the way it used to be run? You just put up a sign-in sheet, nobody had to pay to join the game, and that's it. You're not staff. What business is it of anyone's what you run as your game? It shouldn't be anyone's business. This is peculiar, and this is rather sinister and rather creepy. In fact, I would say creepier than the scenario. But the guy, I'm not going to name him because I don't want him to get any more harassment and hassle. See, this is what anti-harassment policies lead to. Harassment has been dragged on Twitter. He's been dug up, a kickstarted project that he started ages ago but hasn't delivered yet, has been brought up as some kind of damning thing. Trust me, these things can be difficult, especially if you're just one person. And his last update, giving away a load of free content, was on May 15th. So that doesn't seem a particularly good line of attack. All kinds of things are being said about them with apparently no right of reply. I couldn't find the guy anywhere. It all seems rather unfair and an extension of the horrible treatment that they got from the convention when a quiet word, don't do it again, change the scenario, probably would have been a better way to go about things, a more measured and considered response. But no. And now, as always happens, people are now taking this and running with it and asking for all kinds of other censorship. So vaguely adult miniatures, say of slave girls or sacrifices or whatever chained up, they're being told they shouldn't have those. And if their anti-harassment policy is anything like that of anyone else's, just hasn't been applied, then it's really a censorship policy, and a lot of these things could also get removed, which I think is not a good thing. What if you're playing a Robert E. Howard game? Conan? What if you're playing my Tales of Gore game and happen to be using miniatures? You might need some of these things. And who appointed any of these people to be the busybodies of other people's fun? Nobody. So they're taking one incident of one person and a breakdown in communication saying that this is against the rules of the convention, which now seems to be a rather draconian convention to me, and running with it to try and censor a whole lot of other content. Quite often there's like an artist's alley, and artists will have pin-ups and things. Have those got to go? A lot of book covers wouldn't pass muster by the strict letter of a lot of these anti-harassment policies. Now you might think that's a good thing. I don't think censoring other people's creativity is a good thing to do, especially in a creative space like tabletop gaming. Well, you probably regard it as a victory, but this is a big reason, it's a big part of the reason why I haven't attended any conventions for a few years, besides IndieCon shutting down, is because the risk of taking a bunch of content up there to sell, to pay for a stall, to pay for a hotel, all of that, and all it takes is one arsehole taking the worst possible interpretation of something and blasting you on Twitter, and then some nugget from the convention staff is going to make a knee-jerk panicked reaction and punish you for it. So is it worth the risk? I don't know that it is. If you write horror games, if you write games with any kind of horrific content, I would be extremely wary of attending conventions or running games at them. There's SLA Industries, Cannibal Sector 1, on sale there, running demos and things. In Cannibal Sector 1, the clue might be in the name, torture, rape and cannibalism, that's a Tuesday. Are they going to get the same treatment? One has to wonder. This isn't a safe environment, and this is anti-harassment policies leading to harassment of creators and GMs and so on who are volunteers offering their time. And this should just be a matter between the players and the GM. This isn't the game for us. Sorry, we're going to go and play something else. And that should be an end to it. But in this day and age, it isn't, so I'd be careful. Zang.
I didn't wanna hurt you, baby. I didn't wanna hurt you. I didn't wanna hurt you, but you're pretty when you cry.